Hey everyone, we'll get started in just a few minutes. Thanks for joining today. Hey everybody, thanks for joining this afternoon. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, so hang tight. Hey everyone, we'll give it just one more minute for more folks to join, but thanks for coming. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining this afternoon for our webinar on what to do about your student loans right now. My name is Amy Salata. I'm the Outreach and Advocacy Manager at the Student Borrower Protection Center. We're a national nonprofit policy organization focused solely on alleviating the burden of student debt in the country. And we do this through a mixture of advocacy, policymaking, and litigation strategy to rein in industry abuses, protect borrowers' rights, and advance economic opportunity for the next generation of students. I'm very excited to talk to you today. We have a very packed agenda with a number of different topics, and I think that you'll find that the underlying threads throughout all of these topics that we'll go through today is two lawsuits that really have wreaked a ton of havoc on the student loan system right now. One against the Biden administration over the SAVE plan, which is an income-driven repayment plan that is, the most affordable option for most borrowers. It's now currently blocked in court, which we'll go over. And then also the Plan B litigation that just came out on September 3rd. And so these two lawsuits are really causing a lot of chaos in the system and leaving borrowers in a lurch, really without answers and like a great pathway forward. And so we'll go through, what those mean for borrowers. But like, in there are things that folks can do right now, and as advocates continue to push to make things better, there are some action items for folks to kind of take part in right now. So we'll go over those as well. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please put them in the Q&A feature, and I'll get to them at the end, and we'll get to as many as we can. If your question is hyper-specific, I won't be able to answer that, based on your own situation, but we find that most questions can be answered with general program information. And so making those questions, maybe less specific and more general would be helpful. All right, so let's get started. So first, we'll be talking about debt relief updates, which might be top of mind given that the Biden administration was just sued because of debt relief. So as you might recall, last year in 2023, the Supreme Court struck down the first debt relief plan that President Biden had announced. And so that same day, he came out saying that he would continue to try to get this across the finish line under the Higher Education Act. And so this required a process called negotiated rulemaking. Folks came together, advocates, schools, loan servicers, all sorts of people, borrowers, came together and talked about what the parameters of a debt relief plan could look like. This ended in February. Basically, they separated that rulemaking session into two separate rules. The first rule was already out for public comment. It was set to come out this fall. The final rule was set to come out this fall, but it has not yet been issued. And then the second rule, is a proposed rule, but not final yet. The second proposed rule on hardship and what hardship means and what, the administration can do for borrowers is expected to come out soon still. So these are still pending, but in process. But, we know that just a couple of weeks ago, 7 states led by the Missouri State Attorney General, who was also kind of spearheading these SAVE cases as well, sued to block this from going into effect. And a Georgia court granted the temporary restraining order on this. And so this expires this week, and there will be a hearing this week as well. So we expect more information to come out this week. But, the important thing is that they sued against the administration for a rule that's not yet final or in effect at all. And so the implications of this are pretty alarming. But it is temporarily restrained right now. So that means that no debt relief could go into effect from September 5th to I think it's the 19th of this week. So we're just kind of in a waiting game right now. So this is all to say that we're waiting to hear more information, and there's nothing that folks can do to kind of participate in debt relief right now. It's not even a final rule yet, and now it's currently blocked. So just hang tight, but that is the news. That is the latest. So let's move on to the next topic. All right, return to repayment. So I know that it's been almost a year now of returning to repayment, but things are still pretty chaotic, and servicers are having a really hard time keeping up with the volume and just borrower issues in general. So just as a reminder, the payment pause ended last year, and the first payments were due in October of 2023. During this time, an on-ramp to repayment has been in effect, and it'll end on September 30th. So this is a really important deadline. During this time, folks who missed payments weren't considered delinquent. They weren't sent to credit bureaus or placed in default or sent to debt collection agencies. And so folks had a little bit of leeway to kind of ease into repayment during this time. If you didn't make payments during this time, interest continued to accrue, and those missed months, didn't count for public service loan forgiveness if that's something that you were seeking. But this has been in effect, and it ends on September 30th. And so I know advocates like us are pushing to extend the on-ramp for folks, just given the chaos that these lawsuits have created as well. But right now, the deadline is September 30th. And so if you haven't been making payments, unless they extend the on-ramp, it might be a good idea to start making payments come October, because you could be considered delinquent or be in default post that date. If you had an income-driven repayment plan before the pandemic, you have a bit of leeway until you have to recertify your income. Typically with these income-driven repayment plans, you need to recertify your income every year so that the government knows how much to charge you each month. And so that has been extended until November of 2024. All right. Next, we'll get into some of these income-driven repayment plans, or IDR plans, as they're called. So once you graduate and your 6-month kind of grace period ends, you're automatically put into the standard plan. That's this top left corner here. And it has you paying off the entire amount of your loans over 10 years. There are some other types of plans as well, like extended, that has you paying it off over a longer period of time. The graduated repayment plan has you starting on really low payments, but then getting up to really high payments over the repayment period. And then we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about income-driven repayment plans here at the bottom. These are tied to your income, and so they're not tied to the entire balance of the loan. So as your income goes up, your payments increase. But another nice thing is that if you're if unfortunately your income goes way down, you can get a lower monthly payment on your student loans. So one of the nice things about these income-driven repayment plans is that your remaining balance is supposed to be canceled after 20 or 25 years of being in repayment. If you're seeking public service loan forgiveness, that timeline is shortened to 10 years. And so there are cancellation options under these plans. These are the 4 income-driven repayment plans as of right now today. However, it's good to keep in mind that the Department of Education isn't accepting or isn't accepting any. Let me step back. The only 2 payment plans that folks are able to get at this point and apply for under a PDF application, which I'll get to in a minute, are the income-based repayment plan and the saving on a valuable education plan. If you're a Parent Plus borrower, you could also consolidate to get on the ICR plan, but those are kind of the only ones available at this moment in time because of this other lawsuit on the SAVE plan. And so, but I'm just giving you a background here because if that does change one day, these are the 4 plans that are supposed to exist. And so, this is what they are. Now, this SAVE plan was really groundbreaking. It saved a lot of money for folks. It, got rid of the interest after you made a payment so that your account wasn't ballooning all the time. It excluded spousal income if you filed your loan separately from your spouse. So it really kept a lot more money in folks' pockets, ultimately. And, again, it cut payments in half for most folks, and it had a shortened timeline for cancellation. So folks, who had these smaller balances could get their debt canceled between 10 and 19 years. Now, this case, was also spearheaded by the Missouri Attorney General, and it has been moving through kind of the courts this summer quite a bit. But essentially, the SAFE plan has been blocked for right now. If you were already on the SAFE plan before this, court case came out, you were placed on a forbearance that is non-interest bearing. And if your debt was already canceled through the SAFE plan, then your debt can't be reinstated. It won't be reinstated. But it is not technically in effect right now. Here are the eligible loans for the SAFE plan. And this is what like monthly payments looked like for different income brackets. But really want to drive home here that there's no cancellation, no lower payments, and no waiver of interest under the SAFE plan right in this current moment of time. Folks, have been placed on this non-interest bearing forbearance, and you can still apply for SAVE using a PDF application. So that means that you need to kind of Google SAVE PDF application, download it, and then fill it out, upload it to your servicer's site. And that is one way that you can get on SAVE or on IBR if you wanted to get on that plan instead. One thing I want to mention too is that folks who are on this SAVE forbearance, it does not currently count towards IDR cancellation or towards PSLF cancellation. And so this time that for folks that are in this SAVE forbearance right now, that's not counting for PSLF or IDR cancellation. This is something advocates are pushing really hard on. This time should be counted. This is no fault of the borrowers that they're placed on this forbearance. The system, isn't working the way that it should for folks. And so advocates are pushing really hard on this piece that at least let those forbearances count towards PSLF and IDR cancellation. So I'm happy to answer more questions at the end on the SAVE litigation or, kind of next steps, but this is kind of where we stand as of today in September. All right, want to briefly mention the IDR account adjustment. This is something that's also in process right now and hasn't happened yet, but if you'll recall, this kind of goes back to 2022. A couple of reports came out that showed that servicers weren't tracking folks' time towards cancellation. So remember, under IDR plans, you can get your debt canceled if you have been in repayment for 20 or 25 years. This wasn't happening. Folks had, over the history of the program, I think 150 people or so ever received cancellation under IDR plans. And so evidence of a system clearly not working. The department announced this IDR account adjustment that would take place where they counted certain periods of time towards cancellation. And so what they're doing is they're basically going through all accounts. They're doing a one-time audit of everything to see how close people are to that 20 or 25 year mark. This has already been happening for some folks who are already at like those thresholds or past those thresholds for cancellation. And so you might have been hearing in the news like different people getting their debt canceled, maybe through PSLF or through this IDR account adjustment, or a combination of both of those things. And so they're accounting, anytime in repayment, some forbearances, some deferments. And there was an important deadline in June that has passed now. But the important thing right now, I think, is just to know that this is supposed to happen in September. And so sometime this month, we could see folks' accounts get updated, showing more credit towards cancellation, like whether you're seeking PSLF or seeking IDR cancellation. You should see your account get updated in September and have a way to track that. That was the original timeline, at least. We know that there's like a backlog of PSLF applications and all sorts of things going on that are kind of causing a lot of chaos, as I've mentioned. And so, we'll see if this timeline will be stuck to, but this was the original timeline. Okay, let's move on to public service loan forgiveness. So PSLF is a program for borrowers who are working in the public service, and it was originated in 2007 by an act of Congress. And basically, it's the promise that if you work for 10 years in public service and you make your payments on your loans during this time, you can get the remainder of your debt canceled. And so this is how the program works. There are typically 4 requirements for the program. The first is that you have to have the right type of loan, which is a direct loan. That's been the main loan type since 2010. So if you took out a loan since then, it likely already qualifies. But if you don't have a direct loan at the moment, you can consolidate your loans to make them eligible. So say you have an older Pell loan or a Perkins loan, you can consolidate them with the Department of Education, and it pays off your old loan and replaces it with this new direct loan that is then eligible for PSLF. You also have to be on the right type of repayment plan, which for most folks is an income-driven repayment plan. These keep your monthly payments low or lower so that you can kind of make payments over time and then get the remainder of your debt canceled. You can also be enrolled in the standard plan for the PSLF program, but remember that the standard plan has you paying off your debt over a 10-year period anyway. And so those payments in most cases will probably be higher for most folks. And so that's why, the IDR plans are usually better for folks seeking PSLF. You also have to have the right type of employment. That is a public service employer, which is any level of government, so federal, state, local, or tribal governments, any 501c3 nonprofit, and then certain other nonprofits. What falls into the certain other nonprofits category is usually something like emergency services. Maybe you are not couched under a county government. Maybe you're not quite a nonprofit, but it's still considered a public good. And so that is something that usually falls into that category. You also have to work in the public service for at least 30 hours a week. And so that is the definition of full-time right now. And so that is the employment piece. And then finally, you need to make the right number of payments, which is 120 payments or 10 years worth of payments while meeting all the other requirements. So you have to make 120 payments on a direct loan or on direct loans while in an income-driven repayment plan and while you're working full-time for a public service employer. So those are the program requirements generally for PSLF. One really good thing that I just want to keep reminding folks of is that, anytime that you kind of were in the payment pause during the pandemic, those all counted towards PSLF. And so the action items there are really to submit your PSLF forms to make sure that you get that time counted by using the PSLF help tool at studentaid.gov. And so that is like really good news for folks that that time is counted. One other thing that changed this past July is that folks who consolidate to get PSLF or to get, to make their loans eligible for PSLF, they'll receive a weighted average of qualifying payments that they made on direct loans prior to consolidation. This is huge because, prior to this year, folks didn't, well, prior to some of these changes, folks who consolidated didn't get any credit towards PSLF. And so this was a huge problem with the program in the past, that folks would be working towards PSLF. They wouldn't realize that they had a FFEL loan or one of these older loans that didn't qualify for PSLF. Their servicers didn't inform them that this was a thing. And so they went to consolidate and they lost all of their progress towards PSLF. And so this has changed this year, where folks will get a weighted average of qualifying payments that they made on direct loans. And so at least you get some credit after you consolidate, which is wasn't the case before. And so this is a really good development. And yeah, hopefully folks are able to get a little bit more time to count under PSLF before they consolidated. Okay, I wanted to share a note on Parent Plus borrowers here. So folks who have Parent Plus loans were able to get some credit towards PSLF under the IDR account adjustment. And so if this applies to you, maybe this September, you'll see your account get updated with some PSLF credit under the IDR account adjustment. The action items for Parent Plus borrowers are a little different. So, folks enrolled or planning to enroll in PSLF, they must submit PSLF forms. It's basically a way of certifying your employment every year to say, I've done my time here and this is where I work and this is how many hours I've done it, and your employer signs off on it. It can all be done online at studentaid.gov using the PSLF help tool. It's a very simple process. It can now all be done electronically. And so you can send the forms directly to an email address, and your employer can, sign those forms right then and there electronically. So, folks with Parent Plus loans still need to submit those forms for any employment that they've had since October 1st of 2007 when the program began. But then for payments themselves, there are essentially two options for Parent Plus borrowers. Unfortunately, the income contingent repayment plan, or the ICR plan, is the only repayment plan that Parent Plus borrowers are eligible for. And so, folks with Parent Plus loans could consider consolidating to get on that ICR plan, or they could also remain on the standard plan. The ICR plan, unfortunately, is the least generous of the income-driven repayment plans. And so, it might be worth using the loan simulator tool on studentaid.gov to figure out which plan is going to be most affordable. Is it going to be the standard plan, especially given that maybe you've been receiving the payment pause, maybe you were receiving the payment pause during the pandemic, and that's like 3.5 years where maybe you weren't making payments on those loans, but you can get that time to count. Or is it more affordable to get on the income contingent repayment plan? And that plan is available for Parent Plus borrowers still in this moment in time. And so just thinking through some of your options here, it's just a little bit trickier for Parent Plus borrowers. And Parent Plus borrowers, I'm sorry that I didn't explain this at the top, but are borrowers, of course, who took out loans on behalf of their children, but they're in their parents' names, they're attached to their parents' credits. There's no way to kind of transfer those loans back to the students. It's always going to be in the parents' loans, but there are just some more stipulations around Parent Plus borrowers than there are for some other borrowers federally. Okay, so let's just review how to get on track for PSLF if you haven't already. So the first step would really be to log into studentaid.gov and check what type of loans you have. You're looking for that word direct. And so if you have a direct loan, those loans already qualify for PSLF. If you have some older loans like FFEL or Perkins loans, you can consolidate them to become eligible for PSLF. Use the PSLF help tool, also available at studentaid.gov, to submit your PSLF forms. And so for every employer that you've had since October 1st of 2007, that's a public service employer, you can get credit for that time. You can also get credit for multiple part-time jobs if you worked, multiple part-time jobs at different nonprofits or something, and that time kind of equals 30 hours a week over time. Yes. Okay. If you have Parent Plus loans, think about consolidating or weigh your options between the ICR plan or the standard plan. With the employment forms, another thing I want to mention is that we recommend submitting your PSLF forms once a year, and every time you switch jobs. You don't have to do this, but there were a lot of problems with the PSLF program initially, and so by doing this once a year, you can really get ahead of any problems that are happening or any issues you see. And we know that there were a lot of issues, and so that's why we recommend doing it once a year at least. All right. Just a couple more things to review, and then we can get to your questions. So next I want to talk about Fresh Start. And this is a program for folks that are in default. And so typically, when you're in default, you haven't made payments on your loans for 9 months. It really wrecks people's credit. And there are two ways out of default typically. You can either rehabilitate or you can consolidate. And so rehabilitation is a bit of an onerous process. It takes about 10 months. There's a reporting time where the government monitors your payments to make sure that you can make them. It just takes a long time, and yeah, it's just a little frustrating for borrowers. So President Biden announced Fresh Start, which is a way for folks to get out of default a little bit more easily. Basically, it restores repayment options, including those IDR plans that are available right now. It restores your ability to go back to school and get more loans out for school. If you use the rehabilitation option kind of during the pandemic, it restores that option because you only get that one time. It also, restores your credit, and it saves you from involuntary collections. And so a lot of benefits for borrowers in default. So this is another important deadline that's coming up at the end of September. And so folks have 1 year to take one of two action items. You could call the default resolution group or your guarantee agency to get on a repayment plan, or you could also request aid from an eligible school. So, you want to go back to school, and then in that case, the school would contact you and just get a signed statement from you that you agree to be transferred to a non-default servicer at that time. And so folks have two options, and they have until September 30th to do it. And so if you know anyone in default, it's a really good time to get out of default. And if borrowers don't take one of these action items, they will be placed back into default using the original date of delinquency. Okay, let's review some important takeaways and then some important deadlines again, and then we'll get to your questions. Okay. So first, you could log into studentaid.gov. That's really your clearinghouse for all of your information on your federal student loans. So you could check what type of loans you have and see, your eligibility for different programs. And if you need to consolidate, that's when you'd know by looking at your studentaid.gov account. Also use the PSLF help tool to submit your PSLF forms if you're seeking PSLF. And if you're in default, take one of the action items before September 30th of this year to participate in Fresh Start. Remember that the on-ramp is ending on September 30th. And so that's another really important deadline. And so, again, advocates are really pushing for this on-ramp to be extended. But in the event that it's not extended, just being aware that, if you miss a payment after September 30th, you could be considered delinquent or be placed into default at some point, given that the on-ramp is ending. We have a borrower-facing website called cancelmystudentdebt.org, and it has a lot of great how-to guides, particularly around PSLF, but also some, that were around the IDR account adjustment, around Fresh Start, and some other discharge programs, as well as there's a lawsuits page on that website that we are, trying to keep updated as things move through the courts, because we know that there's just a lot going on, and it's really hard to keep track of what's going on. So please check out that website for more information if you need kind of more specific advice or like a how-to guide. Okay, two more things. So there, you can tell from this presentation that there's a lot moving and there's a lot changing. And, these lawsuits in particular are kind of throwing a wrench in everything week to week. It really has been changing that rapidly. And so I think it's prime time for scammers to be kind of trying to take advantage of people. So please be aware of scams. Make sure you're getting your information from a trusted source like studentaid.gov, like our website. Just make sure you're getting it from the right people. And then in addition, we know that folks are having a lot of issues right now, myself included. And so please, please, please file complaints when you have an issue. You can file complaints with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, with the Federal Student Aid Ombudsperson, and with your state ombudsperson. So some states have state ombudsmen at the state level that folks can go to file complaints or ask questions. In addition, if your state doesn't have an ombudsman, you can also file complaints with your state attorney general. And so these are going to be hugely important as things continue to be chaotic right now and folks are experiencing issues with their servicers, which we know are happening. These are going to be really important for making that case and then also shaping like the next kind of policy of the future, because they need to hear from us that things aren't going well. So please file complaints, and I will send out those links in a follow-up email with the recording as well, so that you can kind of easily access the complaints. Okay, some important deadlines to keep in mind. So remember, September is when the IDR account adjustment is happening. And so hopefully we'll see those accounts get updated soon. September 30th, there are two deadlines. The on-ramp for repayment ends and fresh start ends. And so if you need to take advantage of fresh start, please do it before the 30th. This fall, maybe we'll see some debt cancellation. We don't know because of the lawsuits that are happening right now, but it could happen. So keep that on your mind. And then ongoing are these lawsuits that are causing a lot of issues. So just kind of staying up to date with what's coming down the pike. Okay. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your attention. Let's get to some of your questions here. Okay. If a borrower hasn't made a payment since the pause was lifted, are the missed payments just added to the outstanding balance, or is it all due starting October of 2024? I believe that they are all just added to the outstanding balance, and that your payment will still just be whatever it is under your payment plan. I don't think it'll all be due come October. I believe it's just added to the outstanding balance. Okay, does international service such as Greenpeace and United Nations count for PSLF 10 years? This is a really good question. It depends on the organization. And so the organization has to be, it has to have a US kind of employer identification number. And so in some of those cases, that work won't count just because it's not located in the US. And so it really just depends what's on your W-2. So you want to figure that out first, and that will tell you whether or not it's eligible for PSLF. Okay, someone transferred their loan to Mahila under the SAVE plan, and their application is in administrative forbearance pending. What happens going forward? Yeah, so so first of all, let's just recap. If you were on the SAVE plan before these lawsuits, you were automatically put on a non-interest bearing forbearance. So that's true for those folks. If you apply for SAVE since the lawsuits have kind of thrown a wrench in everything, you will be placed on a processing forbearance, and that'll be in effect for 60 days. And it's unclear what will happen next. I think it's likely that they would kind of continue keeping you on a processing forbearance if they haven't sorted out the lawsuits yet. And so, I think that's just going to require some vigilance on the part of borrowers to make sure that they're not falling behind on payments, or that they're not automatically placing them back into the standard plan. We've heard stories of that as well. And so I think it might just be like checking in with your account every so often to make sure that you're still in a processing forbearance until this lawsuit stuff gets sorted out. Okay. Are they processing PSLF forms again? Is the pause on that done now? They are processing PSLF forms again. There was a payment processing or a PSLF processing pause this summer that ended in late July. They're processing them again, but of course, there's a huge backlog, and so it still could be several months before you hear whether or not your forms are accepted or whether that time will count. And so, yeah, I think that is unfortunately the answer that it just might still take some time after the payment pause or the PSLF processing pause. So someone's asking about working for a foreign government qualify for PSLF. So this is the same issue. It has to be the US government. So any level of US government work will qualify for PSLF. Okay, someone's asking about the on-ramp. So again, this on-ramp period is has been in effect since the payment pause ended. And it's basically been a year in which the Department of Education, if you haven't made payments on your loans, they haven't been, borrowers haven't been experiencing some of the negative consequences associated with that. And so you haven't been placed into delinquency or default, sent to credit bureaus, or sent to collections agencies. And so this is ending on September 30th. So after that date, folks who miss payments, could be placed, into delinquency. All those negative effects could come back come October 1st. Since this deadline is ending. But I want to stress again that advocates are pushing really hard to extend the on-ramp period, especially in light of these lawsuits that are happening. And so, again, going to require just some vigilance to kind of be aware of what's going on right now, which I know is hard to find at times. So, I'm just kind of leveling with you here and acknowledging that it is a really difficult time to be kind of figuring out what's going on with your student loans. What happens if you're recertifying your income and save is still blocked? Will you be put on the standard plan? You should not be put on the standard plan. You should be put on a forbearance if you're recertifying your income under the SAVE plan. But we have heard stories where folks are, their servicers are messing up that piece and putting folks back on the standard plan. And so if that happens to you, please file complaints. And you can file complaints to all three of those places: the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, FSA Ombudsman, and your state, AGs or ombudsman. Please do all three of them. It has many eyes on this as possible to just see what borrowers are experiencing right now is really helpful. What have you heard about the length of the SAVE plan forbearance? Yeah, I said I have heard that it could last a year. Yeah, that is true. Right now the SAVE plan, this SAVE litigation has really caused a lot of issues, and so the forbearance could last and will likely last as long as the lawsuit lasts, and so it could be a year, it could be longer. It's really up in the air, and so there's no way to know, but it could be quite a while before the SAFE plan is able to go into effect or not. It's really up to the courts now. Okay, if your loan is in an administrative forbearance and has been in the SAFE plan for 9 months, does interest continue? Interest has continued, and if it should not be applied, how do I file a complaint? This is a great question. So for folks that were on the SAFE plan, they've been placed in a non-interest bearing forbearance. And so if your account is accruing interest and you were on the SAFE plan before this litigation started, absolutely file complaints. Again, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, these links will go out tomorrow and with the recording to all those who registered for this event. CFPB, Federal Student Aid Ombudsman, and your state AG or your state ombudsman as well. And so, yeah, that's a really good flag. So if your interest is continuing to accrue, yes, you should definitely file a complaint. is there an organization I can contact to speak with directly and that will look at my individual situation and advise me of options and solutions? This is a good question. There, there are no orgs that we recommend at the moment to kind of give individual advice. If you have a state ombudsman, that might be a good option. We keep a list of those on our website. I can send those out tomorrow as well. They could kind of help you walk through your situation. Um, you could contact your state AG or, in some cases, maybe your representative, they might be able to help you, but I know that that's not like an ideal option. Some states have some kind of more one-on-one borrower stuff. You might also qualify for a legal aid in your area if your income is low enough. So like, unfortunately, there's no one that we recommend at this point to kind of give individual advice because it is so complicated, and having trusted sources is important. And unfortunately, we don't do that either. So yeah, I'm sorry. I think maybe trying to kind of parse through some of the how-to guides, might be your best bet. At this moment in time, but also it's admittedly very chaotic right now. Okay, another question on complaints that I think we've covered. So someone's asking about the processing delay. This affects folks who are already in the PSLF program and are annually recertifying. Yes, so the processing delay is really for anyone that's seeking PSLF, that's submitting forms or has submitted forms this summer. We know there's a delay, and so even if you're just applying for the first time, or like submitting forms for the first time, or if you're submitting them for the last time, that affects everyone. And so there is a processing delay for PSLF at the moment. Okay, someone's asking about a refund on payments, and so they overpaid by 23 payments. Should they be reimbursed? It matters if those payments were made on a direct loan or if they were in part made on like FFEL loans. And so if it was made on a direct loan, then yes, you can be reimbursed for those 23 extra payments. But if not, then no refund is granted. And so figuring out if you had a direct loan throughout the whole time that you paid for PSLF, that could determine whether or not you would get a refund under PSLF. Okay, so someone's just kind of sharing a story that their loans were put in forbearance because of the SAVE plan litigation, but they still took funds out because they were enrolled in auto pay. So please let folks know that they should have to cancel auto pay if they're under the SAVE plan. That's a really good flag. Absolutely, yes, cancel your auto pay under the SAVE plan if you were on it before, and you also could file a complaint as well. I think it, just to let more folks know what's happening on the ground. Okay, so we have a Parent Plus borrower here who's overpaid on their student loans and they're waiting for forgiveness that they've already applied for, but the Mohila reps have told me there's a pause. And so they're probably, maybe you called this summer during the processing pause, or, maybe they're referring to the backlog. And so, hopefully your loans will be forgiven very soon, especially if you're over 120 payments, which it sounds like you are. And you can get a refund for the payments made over 120 payments if you made them on direct loans. If they were direct Parent Plus loans, then yes, that is a thing that you can get. Okay. Someone's asking about FFEL loans and has potentially 19.5 years that they've been in repayment. And so remember, these cancellation thresholds are at 20 and 25 years. So it's 20 years of repayment if you only have undergraduate loans, and it's a combination, or it's 25 years for those who have a combination of undergraduate and graduate loans. And so, if you're at 19.5 years, it sounds like you're 5 months away from, or yeah, 6 months away from getting cancellation under income-driven repayment plans. And so it sounds like you're very close. And yeah, that's a good thing. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And so unfortunately, I think it just requires a lot of vigilance on your part. But it sounds like you're about 6 months away from cancellation. So that's a good thing. Again, sorry, the Student Borrower Protection Center can't represent individual borrowers at the moment. We don't have the capacity to kind of do one-on-one consultations or anything like that. And so unfortunately, that's not something we can offer at the moment. Someone's asking about a class action suit that we have filed. And so this is a really good question. We actually did sue Mohila earlier this summer. It is not technically a class action suit, but we are representing AFT, the teachers union, and we are doing it in conjunction with the National Consumer Law Center and another private firm on behalf of borrowers. And so while it's not a class action suit, it is a step in the right direction to hold Mohila accountable for all of the issues that borrowers have experienced in repayment. And if you're interested, we issued a report earlier this year called the Mohila Papers, which really details all the issues that folks are having, and maybe, some of those issues were ones that you were having. But the lawsuit with AFT was filed in Washington, D.C., and it's on behalf of all borrowers, but it doesn't operate quite the same way that a class action suit does. And so there's not one that you can join that we've participated in right now. But, if one day we do that, we'll keep you all posted. Okay. Would you recommend making payments during the SAVE forbearance just in case advocates succeed in having this time count towards PSLF forgiveness? Okay. So just to be clear on the SAVE forbearance piece, so folks are placed in this forbearance. If you apply for SAVE, you're placed into a processing forbearance. Should folks be making payments right now under a different plan? So advocates are advocating that for folks that are on the SAFE plan but placed in forbearance, that time should count towards PSLF even though people haven't made payments. And so we're advocating that time should count, kind of like the payment pause during the pandemic, that even if folks aren't making payments right now, this is no fault of borrowers, and so folks should get that time to count towards PSLF. Another option that folks have is submitting a paper application for income-based repayment, or getting on the standard plan and making payments during this time. We can't give legal advice on the best option for you. And so, I think it really comes down to what level of risk folks are willing to kind of accept at the moment, unfortunately. And so those are kind of your options. You could kind of stay on the SAFE forbearance, wait it out a little bit longer, see what's happening. And if they end up counting that time for PSLF, or you could kind of get into another plan and make payments during this time. You could also, maybe save that money away and not make payments right now, but know that you have it in case you want to buy back that time later. There is a PSLF buyback option. You can only apply after you kind of hit that 120 mark and buy back time spent in deferment under what you would have paid in an income-driven repayment plan. And so there are multiple options here. And so it's just a matter of weighing your options under those. Yes, you'll receive a copy of this the recording. Just reading some more questions here, trying to sort them. Okay, someone has a question about their interest on their account, that their balance is still very high, even though they've, repaid quite a bit of the balance. Um, so I think this unfortunately is the reality for a lot of folks that, they've been making payments this whole time and they've continued to see their balances balloon. And so unfortunately, you're in a very big boat with a lot of people. This was one of the things that the Biden relief plan was really going to work on, is these runaway balances and getting rid of that extra interest that was accrued over time, so that it just didn't exist because it was astronomical and most folks can't handle that. And so um I think if that is not able to go through, then I think that your account is likely what it is. And so I guess one thing you could do is you could file a complaint to the ombudsman on what your balance should be, and that Navient messed up. I think that might be useful. Um, that's like one step in the right direction that I can think of at this moment. But yeah, if the Biden debt relief plan is able to go through, that would have tackled your interest problem there. Okay. All right. I think I tackled most of the themes here in the questions. Let me just double check. So someone's talking about defaulted loans from quite a while ago, and they tried to sign up for Fresh Start. I think I think maybe you're confused about the name of the program because it says Fresh Start Public Service Loan Cancellation. And so those are two different programs. And so maybe, again, if you're still in default from those loans, maybe calling the default resolution group or your guarantee agency to get on a repayment plan at this time to get on Fresh Start. And then at that point, you can apply for public service loan forgiveness, but you need to be out of default to kind of submit those applications for PSLF. And so that might be part of the issue there. And so just making sure that your loans are no longer in default, and call today, given that the deadline is the 30th. And at that point, then you could figure out what your monthly payment would be and get on track for PSLF. Okay. Another good question about PSLF here is that someone, has been teaching and since 1999. Can that time count towards PSLF? So first, that time can't count. Only time that you spent working in a public service employer since October 1st of 2007 counts. And so the time between 1999 and 2007 doesn't count, unfortunately. Um, They also said that they were put on deferment and forbearance for several different times. Does that time count towards the 20 years? Um, so under the IDR account adjustment that's happening in September, um, some of those forbearances and deferments, will count towards that 20-year mark. And so if you're seeking kind of IDR cancellation after 20 years because you only have undergraduate loans, some of that time might count. It's also possible, I would look into why your loans, or that you didn't, that your servicers told you you didn't qualify. Maybe you had a FEL loan, one of those older loans, and if you consolidated your loans, you could have gotten PSLF. And so it might be a good idea to kind of look through the program requirements for PSLF, and then look through how the IDR cancellation happens after 20 years, and see which one is better for you at this point, or which one you could be closer to, because you'll get a weighted average on the PSLF time, but that might kind of put you back a few years, and so maybe you're closer to IDR cancellation at this point. And so maybe those are kind of two places to start to see like which might be better in your case. Okay. All right. I think that is most of the questions that were more general. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope that this was helpful. We acknowledge that this is a really stressful time for folks, and in many cases there aren't good answers, and so we're doing our best to get folks at least some information that might get you on track for certain programs that are in effect right now. So I will send out the recording tomorrow along with some resources and some information on how to file complaints. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. All right, have a great day and a good week.